This is gokusondbz, and today I will be doing a countdown of the top 10 video game franchises. This is a countdown of 10 video game franchises that made an impact when it started and how it may have changed certain things in video game culture. So there'll be various different types. It won't be defined to one genre over another. Coming in at number 10 from Sony Computer, and the franchise started in 1995 on the PlayStation 1 PSX. Twisted Metal, which of course is a franchise of vehicles with missiles and different special attack abilities in a brawl for all, basically destroying each other and destroying buildings, people around you. Up until the most recent installment of Twisted Metal, it was basically a Sony exclusive franchise. Twisted Metal 1 through 4, Twisted Metal Black for the PS2, Twisted Metal Head On, which was on the PSP. It's a really interesting franchise, an interesting concept. It sort of created a subgenre for a little while in the late 90s, early millennia with also Vigilante 8. But there's really not many other games like it. Vigilante 8 died after 2 games. Twisted Metal remained. Coming in at number 9 is the game that started the violent, bloody, gory type fighting game genre, released in 1992 technically when it came out, of course 93 on consoles and things. Produced by Midway, which is of course no longer around. Mortal Kombat at number 9, since it did create the concept of fatalities and things like that, and paved the way for other more violent fighting games such as Killer Instinct, which is now getting a reboot. But that's number 9. Number 8 is a survival horror game series that took what Resident Evil did and expanded completely onto it, making it a little more complicated, like a better puzzles, mystery. Very much increase also the creepiness factor on the very first of that franchise. Produced by Konami, the franchise started in 1999 on the PSX, PS1. That would be Silent Hill, which is a really good horror franchise. If you've never played Silent Hill, I'd suggest check out the original PS1 or 2 through 4 on the PS2, or get the HD pack with 2 and 3 together, which is awesome. Coming in at number 7, also produced by Konami, came out in 1998, started now one of the most beloved franchises of all time in gaming, and that is Metal Gear Solid franchise. Started out with original Metal Gear, then you had an awesome game called VR Missions. Sadly, they never did another VR Missions game, which is a shame. VR Missions was perhaps one of the best PS1 games to play. I mean, it had a lot to it. Metal Gear Solid changed the way things were done in gameplay. It had great cinematic, theatrical style video. Some of the, of course, English dub stuff could have been changed, but hey, come on, the first game had awesome villains, Psycho Mantis, and of course, Ninja. But Psycho Mantis was awesome. Coming in at number 6, is considered to be one of the most overrated franchises, but also helped revolutionize first-person shooters forever, and became the number 1 selling, number 1 Prime Joy franchise of Xbox. And it was originally, of course, started in 2003 by Bungie, now exclusively owned by Microsoft, and that is Halo, which revolutionized things with a Halo Combat Evolved. Awesome storyline, and we hadn't seen such a great first-person shooter since 1997 N64 release GoldenEye. But definitely changed things with the style of gameplay. But sadly has gone downhill in the storyline department over the last several installments. Coming in at number 5, produced by Nintendo. Originally, the first game released on the NES in 1987. The Legend of Zelda franchise. Which is no surprise. They have revolutionary games on the N64 also, like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. But I think what really changed it was the second installment on the Super Nintendo, which was Link to the Past. It changed RPG-style gameplay forever. Coming in at number 4, the game that really started the entire horror genre, survival horror. Awesome franchise on both Nintendo and on Sony. But sadly, over 5 and 6 has become more of a third-person shooter, like action-style game. Sadly, it has left its horror roots, and that is started in 1995, originally released on the Sega Saturn, then PS1, produced by Capcom, Resident Evil. But it was a really interesting franchise. I mean, it was really good in the beginning with Tyrant, William Birkin, creator of the G-Virus, Nemesis. After Resident Evil 4, it completely left its horror roots. 4 was a mixture of horror and of action. The last real, I would say, horror-style genre game that was produced for it was probably Veronica X. Coming in at number 3 is perhaps really the first real fighting game ever produced back in the 80s, but nobody wants to remember the very first game in the franchise. It is the second game with about 5 different versions of the second game that we remember and love today, and that is produced by Capcom, originally released in 1987, Street Fighter, which has become part of pop culture, really, if you look at fighting games. Mortal Kombat did things like in the violence sector, but Street Fighter is what paved the way for Mortal Kombat and Dead or Alive and Tekken and all of those franchises. Street Fighter is really what started the fighting game franchise, basically. Had not been for Street Fighter, who knows where fighting games would be today. It's what paved the way for the success of fighting game genre of the 90s. Next, coming in at number 2, produced by Nintendo, the first official game, real platformer for the series, was released in 1985 for the original Nintendo, and that is Mario World. Mario! Yes, obviously Mario has become one of the biggest icons in pop culture for video gamers, and of course the symbol and head of Nintendo, no surprise. But originally, of course, was introduced in Donkey Kong in 1982 on the Atari 2600. But coming in at number 1 is the game series that started the JRPG, RPG, basically, style of gameplay. And that was released by, I forget the original name of the company, but of course it became known as Square. Then Squaresoft and Square Enix. Produced, the first game released on the original Nintendo in 1985. Final Fantasy. No surprise that Final Fantasy would be number 1, given how influential Final Fantasy has become on video game culture. I mean, where would RPG's JRPG style gameplay be today if it wasn't for Final Fantasy laying the groundwork for that genre? Final Fantasy to RPGs is like Mario to platformers. It's like Street Fighter. It's like Resident Evil. It's like those games to their genres. Final Fantasy laid the entire groundwork for it all in that genre. So, definitely have to give a lot of credit where it's due to the Final Fantasy. Whether you like RPG, JRPG or not, you have to respect the legacy that Final Fantasy has done with about 20 games in the franchise. Is very impressive to anyone. But hope you enjoyed this top 10 countdown. As always, leave me a comment. Give me fresh new ideas. In a few weeks, I'll be attending the local anime convention in my hometown, Tsubasacon, which I'm hoping this year, unlike last year, I'm hoping this year to try to record some stuff and put up some vlogs and footage from Tsubasacon this year. I'll probably do like check-ins at Starbucks, which is not too far from the convention center, and try to give updates on it if anybody from my hometown or anybody I'll be attending Tsubasacon sees this. But peace out. Of course, I wish we would, but I hope you all have a great week and a good upcoming autumn.